Welcome, everyone, to the Daily HiFi podcast. We do this every Monday, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. My name is Chana. With me, as always, we've got Joe, Mike, Aaron, and our special guest, Wilfried.
Where'd he
what
go?
happened to Wilfried?
There he is.
Hey.
Yeah, he wanted to make an entrance.
Yeah, he wanted that special
Exactly.
slide in there.
Yeah.
Good to have you back, Wilfried.
You're
We can't
muted.
hear you.
Choose.
Of course, audio is important, yeah.
Yeah.
Audience, you can't be running a YouTube channel with crappy audio for like 10 years.
That's right.
Shots fired. Get it?
Mhm.
Anyway.
No idea what you're talking about, man.
It's all good. It's all good. Anyway, Wilfried, what time is it over there? 1 o'clock?
Yes, it's 1 o'clock here, and I'm sitting in fact, on some holy ground for me, because
Yeah.
this was the first studio ever I built in the backyard of my parents, yeah, and it was in a chicken coop, and then we expanded it later with that huge building that you've seen some pictures about, yeah.
Right.
And afterwards, I rebuilt that chicken coop into a bunker as well on springs, yeah. And this was then the first ever large format 5.1 studio for music. I remember that SSL built for me then the first ever large format console with 5.1 monitoring system inside, a 7.1 inside, yeah. So there it all started, yeah, and that's here it displays. And afterwards, we upgraded it to Auro-3D, so now it's a completely full Auro-3D studio with an API console in it. Yeah, it's one of my favorite consoles. Yeah, it sounds really good. It's one of the best sounding consoles analog ever. Yeah, so it's so we do here a lot of productions. And I was, by the way, doing recently last week, but that was in the other studio. Let me share something. That's when we had then this 5.1 studio a few years later. Yeah, then we had. Can you show the picture from my PowerPoint? Yeah?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So this was then the first ever studio for immersive sound. Yeah. So for 3D audio, and you see there the layout. Yeah. Do you see my mouse now? I'm not sure if you see it.
No.
No, we're not going to be able to see
I
the
don't
mouse.
see it. Okay. Yeah. So that is then you see there's a 7.1 on the bottom. Yeah. And 4 channels up. Let's say the magic part of Auro, of course, this second quarter channel. Yeah. And then you see as well the voice of God there. Yeah. So this was installed. I designed it in 2007, but it took about 3 years to have that console developed together with EMS Neve, yeah. And that's all about production and workflow. And yeah, to create the content, of course, was an important thing because there was nothing existing, yeah. And I think that was one of the main issues when I detected that you need at least 10 channels to create on top of a 5.1 a full naturally immersive sound. That is absolutely the minimum you need, yeah. Then the question was how to do it, yeah, because everything was limited to 8 channels, yeah. Let me try to go back now to my PowerPoint, yeah. Do you see when I move now in a PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah, you see, this was the next step. This was in 2011, yeah, that we have the first ever DFC console. This is our mixing room for films, yeah.
Was that an oral wedding right there? What was that?
Yeah. It was in fact a movie for a wedding that I was mixing it. You see it as well in our demo reel, yeah. And this is that room, and yeah, you know this famous thing about hear more, feel more, and often people asking me from, wow, more speakers, does it mean more immersive? But I'm not sure. Even with 1 million speakers around our head, we will not be able to reproduce natural sound. Yeah, that's a quote that Tomlinson Holman, the guy from behind EXPs, yeah, he is now at this moment director at audio from Apple. Yeah, he said, okay, in fact, the art is to do it with created illusion in the most efficient way, in a very scalable way. Yeah, and very important, especially to me as a content creator, yeah, is delivering everywhere the artistic integrity or the artistic intent. I think that is one of the main concepts of the main goals behind our format, where our format differentiates from our competitors. Yeah. And then came the big moment in 2005 when I found, okay, we need another name. Let's say we needed the dimension extra, yeah. which is then, in fact, I called it in 2010 immersive sound, where I highlighted that already last time. Yeah. Now, coming back to that point, if we need to have an end-to-end system, there are like a few topics involved. First of all, the content has to be created. Yeah. And okay, many people involved there, yeah, in artists, producers, movies, broadcast, everything. But at least there has to be a way to produce the content more than 8 channels. And at that time, that was not existing. Everything was limited to 7.1, but really everything. Yeah, a console didn't have more than a 7.1 output bus. Yeah, there were more channels, of course, involved. Yeah, but the whole monitoring system, the whole panning, yeah, that was only in the horizontal axis, and there was not the ability to go further. Yeah. Then the next step is, of course, the distribution. Yeah. And in the distribution, we had the same issue, a limit to 8 channels. There was no physical distribution, yeah, for consumer market, yeah. For only in, let's say, in cinema, we had a DCP, digital cinema package, which was possible, let's say, to 16 PCM channels, yeah. But let's say there were no streaming solutions, downloading physicals for, let's say, beyond 7.1. It was again all limited to 7.1. And Blu-ray, of course, had the biggest channel count there, yeah, 8 channels of PCM. And then finally, last but not least, yeah, the decoding process at home, yeah, again limited to HDMI, which as format is limited as well by the time to 8 channels of PCM. So the question was, how can we bring now a format with more than 8 channels to the market? Yeah, well, first of all, to create it, to distribute it, and finally decode it as well, so that the end result is the same. Yeah, and that brought me to the idea to create a special codec for it. Yeah, and I think it might be interesting to highlight a little bit more how such things works. Yeah, what it is all about. And so what we are going to do is we are going to have now 2 demos from the codec, in which I explain the concept. So the concept is, in fact, that 2 or more PCM channels, uncompressed audio channels, as 2 different, let's say, or 3 different vertical layers, can be mixed, dynamically mixed into one carrier. And that carrier is the master for surround sound. Yeah? And the decoder at the playback can reveal out of that 5.1 the original mix like it was an Auro-3D. So that's the concept. And in fact, what we do is, in fact, the vertical stereo fields, or let's say the 3 vertical layers, we mix them into one layer in PCM, so it stays uncompressed audio and you have that same audio quality. There is not a loss. That's what you're going to see in the next demo. Yeah. And then the decoder can reveal out of that the original sound. The magic part is that we stay in PCM, so we stay in the uncompressed domain, yeah, which has a lot of advantages in the workflow, especially as well. You can do edits in it. You do not need a decoder, yeah. The moment when you going to, let's say, when you're going to edit certain stuff, so you can always hear the encoded result, which is unique because that's not possible with our competitors' format. You always need a decoder to hear what is, let's say, what is in the master. Yeah. So this is a few advantages. There will be more, but I explained it later in the demo. I think, Joe, is it possible that you perhaps start the first demo? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where we see, in fact, the concept of how we can bring 2 channels into one channel, yeah, and then we can decode it, and perhaps we can have then some question and answers about it, and then before we go to the next demo. Okay,
Sounds good.
The goal of this short demo is to show you the groundbreaking capabilities of the Auro-3D codec. We try to do it with a very simple example. So this is the Pro Tools session in which we are going to just to combine 2 PCM tracks, and we're going to decode them as well and compare the decoded version with the original version. So here is the plugin. You see the plugin. You can create different speaker layouts. The concept is that the high channels are going to be mixed together with the lower channels. And you can just offset them because of the volume as well. If you're going to bring them together, perhaps you have an overload. Yeah. So it's very important you can offset and mix it like you should normally create a down mix in, let's say, from 2 channels or 3 channels into 1 channel. Yeah. Now you see here as well a routing panel. That routing panel can break up till 14 tracks into the plugin. So as you know, Pro Tools is limited to 7.1 buses, so we had to create a solution to bring 14 channels into Pro Tools and less channels coming out. But we keep that still in the PCM domain. So let's make now an example just with 2 channels to understand how the concept works. And I took 2 different songs, and we're going to mix them and unmix them. So this is the first song on the left side.
Running through the rainbow, running through the sun, I feel the rain soft on my tongue.
Now the other song on the right side.
But Odin alone would choose the day they would enter Valhalla. And in their hour of need, he sent.
So I intentionally took 2 different songs that people don't think there is something optimized, let's say, because it's a coherent sound field. It can be 2 different languages, it doesn't matter, yeah. So I drag those ones as a stereo track now, where on which, let's say, the plugin is inserted. Now we are going, you see here, these 2 channels is coming out as 1 mono channel. So it's going to be matrixed as 1 channel, but we have all the creative possibilities because we can use the faders as well to make that down mix between those 2 channels. So you see here the output of 1 and 2 is going to 1 channel out. It is still PCM. So on the next track here, we are going to we're going to record the output of that plugin. And we are going to use as well the fader automation. So I can say, okay, automate fader 1 and 2. And we will use the fader automation from Pro Tools to automate that plugin, which allows as well during the workflow to start the downmix capabilities and the downmix control, so that the 5.1 from a creative point of view is exactly the 5.1 which you want to create. Yeah, good. So let's go now to execute mode, and I will do some funny things in the downmix.
Running through the rain,
But Odin alone would choose the day they would enter
I feel
Valhalla.
the rain soft
In their
on
hour of
my
need,
tongue.
he
So
sent
you saw how I took out 1 song and then the other song. Yeah, normally you do not have to do so drastic things in the downmix, but just to show you the capabilities of the codec. Yeah, just play it back and it will repeat automatically my downmix.
Running through the rain,
But Odin alone would choose the day they would enter
I feel
Valhalla.
the rain soft
In their
on
hour of
my
need,
tongue.
he sent forth.
Good. So let's listen once more without this plugin, because what you heard was in fact already that mono track. Yeah, but to show it for clear, just listen only to that mono track.
Running through the rain,
But Odin alone would choose the day they would enter
I feel
Valhalla.
the rain soft
In their
on
hour of
my
need,
tongue.
he sent forth.
So this track is just PCM. So everybody can play it back on each device because PCM is the mandatory format on all devices. Yeah. But if you have the Auro-3D codec, the Auro-3D codec decoder can reveal from that mono track exactly the original file without all this downmix information. So we are going now to put over this mono track the Auro-3D decoder. And you see it's showing here that 1 track will be split again in the original 2 tracks. Because we stay in the PCM domain, we are going to record on the next 2 tracks the decoder tracks. Yeah. Good, so we go now in execute mode, and you see we hear again the original 2 tracks.
Running through the rain,
But Odin alone
running through
would
the
choose the day they would enter
I feel
Valhalla.
the rain soft
And in their hour of need, he sent forth.
Good. So what is fantastic is the speed of this codec. Yeah, this is the original waveform, and this is the decoded waveform. You see it's exactly the same. There's only a latency from 2 samples. There is no latency compensation on this plugin, installed now. So you see, that's the real decoder time. The decoder takes only one sample for each channel. So for 2 channels means 2 samples. For 3 channels is just 3 samples. It is the fastest decoder ever. Yeah. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the quality. Yeah. So we're going to sync now the original tracks with the decoder tracks, and then we are going to invert the original from the decoded version. So you see here, this is the original version. I drag that one to a channel going to bus 3 and 4. I take the 2 decoded tracks and I drag them here as well, going to bus 3 and 4. But I'm going to invert one of both tracks. Invert that channel, and that channel is now coming together here on that input. Yeah, and you will see that's it. So if I'm muting one channel, yeah, or if I mute the other one, you see it is about those channels. And you see there is no loss at all. A high resolution quality in each channel. That's the groundbreaking capability of the Auro-3D codec and staying in the PCM domain.
Wow.
All right.
Look at that.
Yeah.
So basically, you're able to fold everything into a mono track, and then
Oh, don't say fold.
all right, now combine
That's that other thing.
combine it, and then send it out, and then whoever receives it can extract it. I guess using the decoder, right?
Exactly. So the point is, and the question is, everybody said, but how is this possible? Because the minimum that you change in an uncompressed audio track, you immediately hear it. Yeah, it's not completely true, but it is true. I see that Tim Perry says stereo to mono to stereo, no loss. Exactly, there is no audible loss. Yeah, is it bit lossless? No. Yeah, and that's what I would like to explain. Yeah. You know, we are working for a long time in 24-bit. Yeah. Now, 24-bit is a dynamic range, yeah, which is interesting to have during the workflow, because then you have some let's say for rounding errors, and you have, let's say, a kind of a range, some extra, yeah. But in fact, as a reproduction delivery format, we don't need that. Yeah. You know that about every in sampling, every bit takes about 6 dB on dynamic range. So 16-bit equals, it's, let's say, the first 3 bits you have to drop is in fact like 96 minus 3 is like 93 dB dynamic range. And what is dynamic range? I have an interesting paper. Perhaps we can share it as well with the group. Yeah. Is this something that you can? Perhaps now I have to leave now my PowerPoint out, and I'm going to share with you that paper. Oh, stop screen. Was I sharing something at this moment?
That was the
There you go.
PowerPoint.
So
yeah,
now,
okay.
now you can share something else.
So you guys can ask questions out there too. So if you have any questions about what that particular demo that he just showed, go ahead and ask your questions, and we'll bring them up here. And
So you're saying no audible difference, but there is a slight bit of a degradation in quality that we're not going to notice.
Exactly. It's not hearable. You cannot hear it, and I explain you why you cannot hear it. Yeah, because that's very interesting. Yeah. Let's say this codec is not working on psychoacoustic optimization. You know that if you're going to, let's say, all these lossy codecs that our competitors are using, or like with MPEG or let's say AAC and all this, there's all this kind of solutions to bring it to a smaller bandwidth needed. Yeah, they use psychoacoustic optimization, and what does it mean? Yeah, they take out certain elements for which they might believe that we are not so sensitive, but our brain picks it up. And it is creating artifacts which are for our brain not, let's say, which is creating in the long-term fatigue. Yeah, our brain doesn't like so much those artifacts. Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with spatial information. A lot of spatial information is taken out. Yeah, I give you a simple example. Yeah, if you do 2 claps after each other, yeah, like this, yeah, you hear the second one. But if you do it very fast, yeah, you almost don't hear the second one anymore. So they try to find optimization things with spatial information that immediately it looks like it is not obvious in the track, yeah, and by taking it out it is not obvious either, but it creates artifacts which is creating kind of distortion. It is real distortion that you're adding on it, yeah. So the Octopus codec is in fact what we call in fact the Auro codec. Let's say the internal term which is patented is Octopus, yeah. And in fact the idea behind is that we want to have it in uncompressed audio, so the quality has to be uncompressed audio. It has to be able as well to deliver in 96 kilohertz, so 96 kilohertz 24-bit. As you know, our competitors cannot do that on a Blu-ray disc, or they can only maximum deliver to 48 kilohertz due to, let's say, different reasons from their technology. But our technology can do it within 96 kilohertz and having as well that same 96 kilohertz resolution. So there is not any, let's say, concession that we are making because we are going to use this codec. And of course the backwards compatibilities, they're like the fact that we stay in PCM and that we have this ultra low latency, is amazing. This latency from just a few samples, it's just amazing. So the quality is, of course, the audio quality is one of the main things. So as I told you last time, the speaker layout is one aspect of the let's say the reason why Auro-3D has that natural sounding, but a very important other component is, of course, let's say that we can deliver everything in uncompressed audio. If you have the same 9.1 track and you encode it with the Auro encoder and you hear it, then you hear exactly the same as the original. If you do it with our competitors' format, you feel really there is a loss. You feel really the sound is a little bit less warm, less thin. There's more artifacts. We don't have that kind of issues with our codec. Now let's talk a little bit, because this is a full white paper that I can share with you. You can find it, but I can send it to you too, which is explaining a little bit how sampling works. So, and this is, for instance, a sampling of, let's say, a 4-bit quantization thing. And here you see the bit depth. So let's say every bit is taken typically starting from the first 3 not, but then every 6 you have like 6 dB for each bit. Now, as you know, 8-bit is 1 byte. So 16 is 2 byte, which makes it digitally interesting to work with. And the question was, let's say, how much dynamic range do we need, or do we let's say, what are the dynamic ranges? And here you see the dynamic ranges of the different audio formats. A CD can do like 16-bit, DVD audio, Blu-ray disc, digital pure audio, that's all 24-bit. And then you have a dynamic range from about 140 dB. But what does that mean? If you see the dynamic range, I think that's very interesting. Here I have a very interesting example. The Galaxy Studios hall, you've seen our hall here last time in the picture. I sent it, show it to you, That has a background noise airco on from 14 dB SPL, which is very, very, very silent, Now, in a good recording studio, typically it's like about 20 dB background noise, In a good cinema theater, and same like in a living room, it's about 30 dB. Let's say SPL, and then on top of that you have the dynamic range, So if you have, let's say, with speech, that's the dynamic. Let's say the conversational speech is about 60 dB. Here you see chamber music to 75 dB, applause in an auditorium about 85 dB. The subway, the tractor farm 90 dB. Then you go even higher, like a French horn of an orchestra, or like a diesel truck, a full orchestra 105, and then like a snare drum on a speaker is like 110 dB SPL. So if you see then the SPL, if you take that kind of SPL minus the dynamic range, then that's very interesting, because that means the dynamic range is only like 90 dB that you need, to represent it. So, and the pain threshold is about 120 dB. So the dynamic range
Pain
minus,
threshold.
yeah. So if you take, let's say, the pain threshold minus the, let's say, a very silent room, then with 100 dB dynamic range, you can in fact serve almost all kind of natural sounds and whatever you want. Yeah. So CD was not that far off. Yeah. And in fact, if you hear the difference between 16-bit and 18-bit, yeah, you can still hear that, but that's a very, very small difference. Yeah. But above 18-bit, yeah, and the dynamic range you need, that you can sometimes hear it there in the tail. Yeah. But let's say the difference between 20-bit and 24-bit, you cannot hear. Yeah. Additionally, there are no AD converters, yeah, or DA converters. If you see the DA converters at playback, yeah, most of the top consumer products are limited to 20 bits. Yeah. Here you see the different kind of DA converters and the dynamic range that they can give. Yeah. And I think we have them here in a range. Yeah. You see here, most of them, and very most popular, even the professional ones, they go to 20-bit thing as well. Yeah. So that means there is room. There's like a few bits, and these are the least significant bits. This is a kind of a noise that you cannot hear even on a consumer device, because there are no 24-bit DA converters in, let's say, in the consumer world. Even 22 bits is very rare. Most of them are limited around 20 bits. Yeah. So if you did now a signal from 20-bit to 20, from 24-bit to 20-bit, you cannot hear that difference at all. Yeah. But what you can do is you free up 4 bits, and with this 4 bits, yeah, I found together, let's say with a codec engineer, yeah, is an amazing guy, Guido van den Bergen, yeah, and he developed mathematical solutions, and we worked on solutions to bring, let's say, 2 channels into 1 channel, and using for that combination just 4 bits. We have to understand it very well, because sometimes people think that we use the high channels with only 4 bits to bring it in the lower channels. That's not true. We bring 2 20-bit channels into 1 channel, yeah, that becomes 24-bit, and the 4 bits, which are just like a noise that you cannot hear, yeah, it's like a white noise, yeah, those are used, yeah, to allow the decoder to reveal out of it again the original sound as it was. Yeah. So that's in fact the way, very shortly described. Yeah, you see here, this is the kind of a thing. Yeah, so the 24 bits is what the full dynamic range gives, which is interesting during the workflow. But as a delivery format, you don't need it anymore. Then you need, in fact, 18 bits maximum. Yeah. So there's like even up to 6 bits. Yeah, and that's what we used, let's say, to create the architecture and the mathematical solution. So this codec works like a lossless, the same principle, the same mathematical principles being used for, let's say, a codec, yeah, a lossless codec. These are, let's say, these are the same principle. There's no psychoacoustic optimization or something like that, and that's the reason why this can be so fast. As you have seen in the demo, it is only 2 samples for each channel that, in fact, the principle of the technology is using. Yeah. But it's a little bit technical. But let's say the thing is, the moment when I found out, yeah, that it is working fantastic for 2 channels, I thought, why not doing with 3 channels? Because then we can use 3 channels into 1. And perhaps, Joe, this is the moment when we can explain very fast, because 3 channels can be used for bringing Auro-3D level system, yeah, the 3-layer system, into a 5.1 delivery format. Yeah, that's the way, for instance, the movies are released in Auro. So people at home as well, they have the 5.1. If they don't have the decoder, the Auro decoder, they hear the normal exactly same master as the 5.1. And movies went out, like, for instance, Spider-Man. The 5.1 version was spread out worldwide in 5.1. Sony distributed that movie only in Auro encoded 5.1, which means that 90% of the cinema theaters not having an Auro system, but only the 5.1, still the main standard everywhere. Yeah, they hear the 5.1 as it was intended by the creators, exactly in the same way. But of course, the cinema theaters or the people at home who have the decoder, the decoder will reveal out of that 5.1 again let's say the original Auro-3D. But we can use that same principle to bring surround sound into a stereo signal.
Yeah. So real quick, does anybody have any questions about what Wilfried has just said? Because it's a lot about how they're able to fit multiple channels on a single channel, by using those 4 bits. I mean, usually what happens is after you're gone, Wilfried, everybody's like, you know what? I was thinking about it, and you know what? I don't think that's right because I'm like, why didn't you ask? Well, he was here. He could have done it right now.
Answer.
This is the time. You have a question, you don't agree, you think that maybe that's going to degrade the sound in some way. This is your chance.
Yeah.
Don't do it later.
And so I have a question. Wilfried, now, did you do this just due to the fact that the software like Pro Tools at the time didn't have more than 8 channels? Is that why you had to come up with this?
No, there were 2 things. First of all, it was the limitation. I couldn't see a solution that there would come like a new Blu-ray format or like something like PCP. So that's one thing. But the interesting thing is compatibility. You have to understand that we have 2 creative masters, and even 3 in fact, because the downmix to stereo is in fact in the metadata as well. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So we have 3 masters in just one delivery format, and the bandwidth is the same. So we do not need extra bandwidth to deliver and the 5.1 artistic master and the Auro-3D artistic master. And that has a huge advantage because, let's say, you have 2 artistic masters in one thing. So you can, let's say, for archiving, for whatever it is a very interesting format. Yeah. And there is no need for extra bandwidth, which is unique to us as well, because that's the reason why our competitors cannot put, let's say, they need extra bandwidth on let's say on a Blu-ray disc. That's the reason why I cannot go to 96 kilohertz, for instance. Yeah, while we can do that, we didn't have to change any spec on the existing deliveries. So the first Blu-ray player ever can play back Auro-3D, which is not the case with our competitors' format. This was only the latest generation of HDMI who could do it. Yeah, so this has a lot of existing, let's say, a lot of advantages from a compatibility point of view, and even more. And I have a surprise for you guys in this thing, because I'm going to talk about something that we do now in streaming with this technology in Japan already, and that's something I can highlight a little bit later. But let's first go to the demo part. Yeah, is it if the full track is shared to the heights, does that mean the full range band down to 20 hertz is also revealed? Yes, of course it is. We have the full spectrum. There is nothing changed in the spectrum. It's the, let's say, the 20 hertz of 20 kilohertz. It doesn't mean it is the full range. So we are not cutting out a part of it. That doesn't work like that. So the only thing is the 24-bit. Yeah, we use 4 bits that you can never hear yourself at home, yeah, or like even in a professional thing. These are not used in a delivery format, yeah, because as human beings, yeah, you are not going to extend your ears to more than 120 dB dynamic range, which means 140 dB SPL. Then blood comes out of your ears almost. Yeah?
Does anybody ever disagree with you on that? I'm just kind of curious, because I can imagine somebody would be like, no, I want that extra dynamic range, because you see some of these guys fighting for like more everything, like every number just higher.
I want my DACs to have 140 dB of dynamic range.
It needs,
Nothing else.
I can add one interesting joke from Tom Links and Holman. Yeah, he said in one of the conventions, he said this is also right, because you can only hear one time in your life a 24-bit dynamic range.
Then your hearing's gone, right?
Then your hearing is gone. So that's enough. Professional knows about it. Yeah.
We have to get to this because Chris Wyndham, thank you for the super chat. He asked real quick, what does Wilfried think of 2-channel only music? So, what do you think of that?
Oh, he's getting choked up now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Well,
so do you prefer 2-channel, or do you naturally
think of
just upmix it to Auro-3D?
No, in fact, I am going to be very honest here. Yeah, I'm raised up with music in stereo, of course. As a kid, I was only knowing stereo. Yeah, I was not really knowing the period from mono anymore. It was already well, my father had a fantastic stereo installation, so and vinyl and all that kind of stuff. So I was born in stereo. And then when I was 16 or 17 years old, I heard for the first time quadraphonic sound, and I was so impressed about it. I said, "Wow, that's another dimension." And it's true, it's another dimension. And I couldn't wait, because I felt that kind of extra interesting spatial information coming to us. So I couldn't wait that surround sound was coming to be used in music. So when CD came to the market, I was hoping that quadraphonic CD was coming soon. Yeah,
Right.
it didn't happen. And then finally, when I heard DVD came on the market, then I said, this is the moment. And that's the moment when I built the studio. That's the moment I said, now is the moment. Yeah. At least it is not a good quality. It's AC3 and things like that. But that is, let's say, at least we have the ability to create that
Something
kind
to
of
work with.
something to work with. And the moment, because I knew 5.1, in fact, in the beginning, only from cinema. But what I found is very interesting, the following. In cinema, you have to that array of speakers, you have more a diffuse field. And that sounded to me more natural than, let's say, having discrete 5.1, because these two channels in the back were like, yeah, they were like, okay, they were taking subconsciously my attention, and you didn't have that kind of nice spread. Okay, we worked with deep dipole speakers and all that kind of stuff to create that kind of same experience. Because, of course, in cinema, you have the disadvantage. It creates this kind of phasing issues in this array. So the question was, how can we create a more natural sound? And then it is more by coincidence I came in contact with someone who was putting height, yeah? And there's, oh, wow. And that was, of course, for me, the eye-opener, yeah? And then I added this not only top height, but the back height on top of a 5.1. And then the most impressive moment in my life was the moment when I did my first recordings in Auro 9.1, 5.1 and 4. And the emotional component, that was for me the big difference. That was a tenfold from what I was used to hear, yeah? And honestly, I just last week I was doing here the Bernie Dressel. Do you know the guys from UK, from LA? Bernie Dressel, yeah. He's the big band. These are the top big band players in the world, yeah.
Gotcha.
They were flying over last week here to mix their recording here in fact, I was mixing the recording myself in Auro-3D. And at a certain moment, just to give you the expression, because you feel the big band, you feel the music, you feel the whole dynamic stuff and so much more detail. You're like in that music, yeah. But then you still have to do that boring part to deliver a stereo mix.
The boring part.
And exactly that is what's happening. And I tell you honestly, this is the feel that we all have. Okay, let's still do this. And this was the fun part now. Now we have to do the real stuff, because most of the people still will hear it in this way. So we have to treat them with respect. So we have to create now from a fantastic thing something which is still very good. Yeah.
So you start with
fantastic
Auro
to very
3D.
good.
Yes.
You start with that, and then you work your way down to
that's I think one of the major advantages of, let's say, Auro-3D. We have that channel-based workflow for music. Yeah, we can add object-based. We have object-based. We use it in broadcast and things because in Auro Max we have it. It's not a question that we don't have this technology. Point is, does it fit our, let's say, what does it create extra? Nothing. Especially not in the music. I do not see immediately where you can use it. Okay, our competitors, they use that technology because they use it to add height. In our format, we don't need that, and it has a lot of advantages. Yeah, one of the advantages as well that we can do the mastering process in the traditional way that is being done. A lot of people don't know, but if you have, like, say, the whole workflow goes from recording, mixing, mastering. Yeah. And that mastering process is very important, especially in the pop music. That's the place where they're, let's say, they are going to try to make a coherent sound feel, blending with all the tracks, yeah, compression techniques to bring it more out of the speakers. All that kind of stuff happens in the mastering studios, and they're like really top mastering engineers, yeah. And they can do still exactly the same as they did in their stereo 5.1 channel-based version, yeah. Which is, of course, a completely different way of working with our competitors' format. They have a workaround, but it's much more complex. Yeah. So let's say from
I want to hear about that. How does that work? How do you think that works?
Yeah, you have to see. Let's say I explained in the previous version what object-based and channel-based, how does it work? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in channel-based environment, you can create all your compression things and EQ things, and you control it. Yeah. And then you know your result, and everything about compressing is in that result. But the moment when your trunk of objects and your beds, the channels are separate, yeah, you can perhaps do that creation in the mastering control. But what happens at the renderers place, where you have more speakers, how to calibrate all the kind of stuff, it will be a completely different thing. So the renderer from an object-based format at playback can never reproduce that, let's say, the process that they do in a mastering process. It's just not possible. It's physically not possible. It is so complex you can just not do it. So they have to they try to create certain workarounds now to have that kind of let's say similar control, but it's not the same. Yeah.
Now I have another demo from you. You let me know when you want to show that one.
The demo.
Yeah, you have another
the
demo
second
here.
demo. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's stereo, that surrounded to stereo one.
Yeah.
This is just like an example to show, let's say, some capabilities of the codec that even stereo can be used as a carrier for, let's say, PCM format. Yeah. And then you have the normal 5.1, and I took as an example the New Year's concert. You know the New Year's concert in Vienna? We have it in Auro 9.1, yeah. But I took the 5.1 downmix, so that is in fact the 5.1 master, yeah, in Auro, yeah. And then we're going to downmix it to stereo, and we can reveal out of that stereo again the original the original surround format. This is a 5.0 surround track. Perhaps you can play that demo,
Yeah.
Joe.
So one of these days, can you make it so that, you know, like if I'm watching broadcast TV right now, it says like, oh, this is in Dolby Surround or something like that. Next time, can it say like Auro? Can you make that happen? You know what I mean?
That's the big
You work
question.
on that. All right, let me play this video for you real
All have
quick.
to work on that, yeah. But that's the reason why I say this is an Auro-3D track, so it's about the same thing, yeah. But
Okay, all right. So here we go.
So let's start with listening to a 5-channel surround mix, including hand claps, typically very challenging for audio codecs. Let's create now a dynamically controlled downmix of the surround master into a stereo PCM track using the Auro plugin. So let me show as well the artistic freedom you have. Let's take less surrounds, or even the left channel down, or the surrounds up again, or the front channels down, up again. Just to give you an idea about the creative freedom we have during the downmix. So you see now the 2-channel master created with the Auro plugin. This stereo track in PCM contains all info of the original surround master. Let's activate now the Auro decoder that recreates the original surround master. The audio quality is the same and all the fader movements are again neutralized. So an easy way to test the quality, we take the original tracks and sum them with the decoder tracks phase inverted. As you can see, the result is a white noise which is so low that it never can be heard in the decoder tracks, which means there is no loss in the audio quality. The Auro codec does not use any psychoacoustic technology, but it is based on the same principles as lossless compressors. On top of the transparent audio quality, this approach has many advantages in the workflow. Even editing can be done in the encoded PCM tracks.
okay,
Okay.
you see, and the question is now, how many channels can you go on like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did till 4. And with 4, you slightly start to hear the artifacts, but slightly, yeah. In fact, you can go till 4, but that means you can go 4 to 8. That means you can go up till 32 channels on a Blu-ray disc.
Wow.
There's
Yeah.
a couple questions that came in. One from Kanga. Where's the data stored during the down mix?
Good question, Kenga.
Yeah, exactly. This is the data is stored in those 4 bits out of the 24. Yeah. So that means, in fact, we have a 20-bit signal. Yeah. And as I explained to you, the 20-bit signal is equal to the 24-bit. Even, let's say, if you did it in the right way, yeah, it sounds as perfect as a 24. There is no audible difference that you can hear. Yeah.
Cool. Another question from Matt. As with any technology, there's compromises. Can you discuss the deficiencies in the Auro format as compared with its competitors?
What does it mean? The deficiencies? That's not clear to me.
He's saying, what's wrong with Auro?
What
Tell
are
us
the
all the bad
flaws?
things.
Come on now.
Yeah,
all
what
the
are
bad things.
things?
Where are the others better than Auro?
He's like, the only bad thing is
what are
it's
the
not
shortcomings?
in the
Yeah,
What are
hey.
the shortcomings?
I think if
No.
anybody would say, I think it'd be you. So, are there
point-
any?
I'm just wondering what the disadvantage would be. I don't see it. Yeah, the point is we have a better audio quality. Yeah, we have an easier workflow. We have a more efficient workflow. Yeah, you don't need a decoder, let's say, to hear the encoded result. Yeah, it is compatible with all delivery of, let's say, all media formats which can contain PCM audio. Yeah. So it is, you do not need to change any specs because it is in the PCM domain. Yeah. Yeah. I think what is the disadvantage? I do not see any disadvantage compared to our competitors. I can tell you now a book about our competitors for me.
It's the best.
Well, so I
Gotta
guess the
say.
downside is it's too compatible. You need to charge more licensing. You know what I mean? You make more money if you make it proprietary and lock everything up.
Yeah, but the
That's-
point is, of course, let's say the amount of money needed for, let's say, to do like to bring such a format to the market. That's like that costs many millions, and you need to have, like, you cannot make it royalty free. That's like then you
Right.
there's no reason that, say, the company can survive and that we can give the support which is needed to people to bring this kind of technology in their devices. That's because you see the codec is just one part. Yeah, if you know our Auro engine. Yeah. Let me show perhaps something else again from the PowerPoint. Where is the window of the PowerPoint? I think this is no, let me check it first. I have to bring it forward here again. Yeah. Let me see here. I am going to show you now something which is the Auro codec.
So while you're looking for that, I'm gonna throw another question at you, and you can just think it over for a second. I'm gonna put my buddy Aaron on a spot here because, he's using I see. If you're quiet,
He's scared. He's
if
scared.
you're
dude.
quiet,
I've just been sitting
So what
back and
happened?
listening. Don't put me on the spot like this.
no, he has an older receiver. I'm pretty
Why
sure
you gotta
don't
go
have
there?
Auro.
Why? Look, man, just because it has Toslink only.
Toslink. Toslink.
Bless your
Oh, I
heart.
know.
So yeah,
There we go. That's the right one.
There we
I
go.
get the feeling. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're a little bit skeptical about
Yes, I am.
extracting from, let's say, something that isn't a native Auro mix, and you're putting stuff into the high channels that weren't originally there, right? You have to kind of figure out
Right.
what to put up there. So I
Yeah.
can totally understand it. Like, how do you know what to put up there? Like, is it supposed to be there? The guy didn't mix it that way, so how do we know it should be up there? That's a
Right.
valid question. So
Yeah, I'll go with that.
yeah.
Yeah, that sounds
I
reasonable.
would have the same. I would have the same. I've had the same thoughts, except for the fact that I've used it, and so I don't feel like it's gimmicky. But maybe
Hey,
what are
I
what are
didn't
your
say
thoughts?
gimmicky.
No, you didn't.
Maybe
but
I did, actually, I
I
don't
thought
know.
it might. I thought it could. I thought it could without trying it. I'm like, I've heard stuff where it tries to do things before. So, what are your thoughts, Wilfried? If you
But
can
now
answer
you're
that.
talking about automatic, right?
Yes,
The
I know we're going all over the place,
The
but
upmixing, right? So
No
taking
pun
the
intended.
channel, upmixing it. To
How do you know
9
what to
or
put in
11.
those heights?
I tell you an interesting story from last week. Yeah.
Okay.
So the guy, the big band drummer Bernie Drezel, yeah, and the producer Gary Reber from Widescreen Review, yeah. So they said, okay, Wilfried, can you bring us to the airport from Amsterdam again? So we worked till late at night, yeah. We slept 2 hours. We took the car, and in the Porsche they have the automatic system, yeah. You cannot play back in such a car the native Auro-3D, but you can do automatic. And I said, why don't we have, let's have fun now. We drive to the airport and we put our stereo tracks and mix them up in automatic in the car.
Their mix.
Yeah, the mix
Their
that
mix.
I myself. Yeah. So
Oh,
for
okay,
them.
you're okay.
So it's let's say it's the stereo mix, yeah. But we were whole the week hearing the whole track in Auro-3D, in native Auro-3D, yeah.
Right.
Then we could hear it how it sounded again in the car, but then upmixed, yeah. And the feeling is coming very close to the original one. If you hear the upmixed result, yeah, it's so close, yeah, to that original setting that is really. It was such a fun to drive back and feel how stereo can sound fantastic by automatic, yeah.
So but in the demo that you showed, you took multi-channels, 5 channels down, not really down mixed them, but put them in 2-channel, but you were still able to extract that same data from those 2 channels. So when you were in the car, did you have that information, or was it just
Michael?
channel?
No.
That's very important. These are 2 completely different technologies.
Okay.
Let me share again. Can you see?
Yeah.
I'm going to share now something. Yeah. This is a moment window. Yeah. So this is the Auro engine. Yeah. Can you see this now?
Yeah, we'll get back to that question in a little bit because I don't want to get it confused as far as like what you're talking about, how you're able to, get multiple channels. Here we go.
Yeah, you see, because you see in the Auro engine, we have these 2 technologies together. That means if it recognizes that there is no original Auro-3D, then it is using that automatic thing to create artificially a 3D feeling, while when it sees the metadata in these 4 bits, yeah, then the decoder, the Auro decoding happens, yeah, and then it creates, of course, virtualization over the speaker, and there are all of other technology, but then we bring this full 3-dimensional experience everywhere. You see what I mean?
Gotcha. So in the car, you only had 2 channels.
Yes, in the car,
And
there is only 2 channels, let's say, native input.
Right.
But of course, it distributes over a full, 13, 14 speakers in such a Porsche. Yeah, so that's
Nice.
that
Man, I
makes
need to get one of those.
Yeah, I
So
want a Porsche.
okay, so it sounds like you've done a great job of optimizing and figuring out where you could take from and where is not audible with the 4 bits and all that. And so I have to imagine, okay, he's trying to upmix 2-channel. What information is there in that original track to tell you, what to put in the heights? So I have some guesses. I have my own guesses about what kind of information you have. Because, like, for example, like I've used Isotope RX to remove reverb in the room. And so I thought it was kind of interesting because, you can have something where it has a bunch of echoes and it can kind of extract out the dry signal from the wet signal, the reverb and all that. So I was just thinking about it. I'm like, oh, that's information there. How long is that? So I'm just wondering if you're doing something like that.
What is the secret sauce? Is what we're asking.
What you have to tell me a little bit. I know you can't say all of it.
He's pulling it, Wilfried. Come on.
Look, the way I
Give
figure,
him something.
the way I figure is if I have to guess, then when people have to guess, and if they don't really know how it's working, then
What people aren't.
they might not
up
believe
on
that
or
it works.
down on.
They might not believe it. Just
didn't I share you with you a document how the codec works? Let's say the automatic works.
Joe wasn't listening.
you sent me a lot of stuff.
I think you did. I think you did.
You probably did, but a lot of them are like, oh, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
It's like
I
homework
got
assignments.
I got this
in
new.
fact, guys, let's say there are like in total 54 different, let's say, parameters. Yeah.
Correct.
Which
Okay.
are in real time, yeah, going, let's say, when a signal comes in, yeah, those 54 parameters decide and how, let's say, everything is going to be spread. It takes into account, of course, let's say the way that the system works, is always respecting the artistic intent in such a way, that if the original has, let's say, a kind of a normal room reverb, like in a jazz club, the automatic brings you in all this kind of thing, that kind of same acoustical experience. If it is like if you're like in a church and you have the only 2 channel, you feel like you're in that church. It translates the acoustical environment of the original. And there are like many aspects into account. For instance, the lead vocal, you will hear the lead vocal still coming from the front. And people said, "Oh wow, how can you just take all these objects and just decide where to place them?" It does not work in that way, that it's going to isolate all these objects and then decides where it goes through. It works in a kind of different way. And we are working on kind of some, let's say, we have some psychoacoustic, let's say, tricks is not the right word here, but let's say technologies, that we use here to let's say, to bring that naturally immersive sound. I think one of the amazing things what we achieved is just take a mono track and do it over automatic and compare it with whatever kind of other technology. In other technologies, you will get about phasing issues, and in our technology, it still sounds very natural. There's no phasing issues, and these are the kind of all extra elements that we put on the table. It's not by coincidence that I started this development together with Ralph Kessler in 2006 already, early 2006, and we worked 7 years before we came with it to the market in the first AV receiver ever in 2014. Then we came to the market with it, And the reason was, in the beginning, it sounded fantastic only in a specific genre of music, or like not on movies and things. And we had always to add more parameters and more things. And at a certain moment, it became a too heavy algorithm. Then it down again to bring it easy in consumer devices. So it's not by coincidence it took us so many years to develop something like this. And there was a lot of knowledge involved as well. Let's say and already experience that Ralph and myself were dealing it, to make something like that happen.
Yeah, so it was getting very heavy, with all those parameters. Next thing you could be like, you know what? You only need 16 bits. We need that extra 8.
We need more. We need more bits.
Joking.
More.
So you can't. So there's 54. How many of those 54 are you able to talk about? Because I know in the papers it talks about some of the stuff that you're saying that you're not getting any comb filtering by the way you're doing some of the stuff. So, I guess I'm kind of curious, like.
Let me put.
Can you tell us like 53 of them?
I think what we can do is, I think it would be better than that we do a separate section or a separate thing about automatic, and I think Ralph Kessler should be involved then.
All right.
As an engineer, he is. Let's say, he can decide easier than myself, perhaps, to know what is right to describe here, and where our, let's say, because I think a part of this technology is, of course, patented, protected, a part not, and things like that. So we have to be very, very careful what we can disclose here. But I think it would be nice, and I think it would be correct as well to have him involved, because he's major part of, let's say, of this development, which I started with him in 2006. So I would suggest we do that in the next session. Is that okay?
Sounds good. And what happens if you come up with a 55th? What if you're like, you know what, this one parameter? Then what do you do? Can you change? Can you change the way that everything works? How does that work?
That's the point. You have to think very well before you're going to launch a project or like this. The same with a codec. You see, once you have a codec out in the market, then the moment it's in there, it's not easy to let's say, to change it. And I think that's one of the reasons why it took me a few years as well. The Auro codec principle was already developed in early 2006. In fact, already in 2005. But then we started to develop it, and it took us as well 3 to 4 years before we are sure enough this is now fixed. And you see the competitors as well, before they're going to do something. I know that due to our success in the cinema market, then our main competitor Dolby came very fast with a solution as well. And even for them, it's not easy. And I think that was bringing them in difficulties because they developed Atmos, in fact, in the beginning only for the cinema industry, because they could never imagine that people were going to install like 15 speakers or like 10 or more than 10 speakers at home. Yeah. So, and that's the reason, the moment when they designed that, afterwards they had to come with solutions to bring it to a consumer format. And that is creating this kind of, do you know how that works for them?
No. Please, can you explain?
He's like, let me tell you, there's my book I was telling you
Here's
about.
another hour.
This is the flaw.
No, please.
No, I'm not going to highlight so much about our competitors' technology.
I was about to say. Hey, real quick.
Let me say,
here's one of my patrons. This is what he just said. We just watched Spider-Man: Homecoming in Auro-3D, and it's the best sound we've ever heard.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you so much. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, always.
By the way, those videos that we played, I think I linked to those because I uploaded it privately to my channel or unlisted. So I linked to those.
Yeah, but you can have them. So it's public information. There's nothing secretly.
Okay. Just those videos that you just showed.
Yes, you can have them.
Yeah. Okay.
But you can show them on the YouTube channel you have. So no problem.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah. Here, let's say, do you see here this left figure? Do you see my mouse now or not?
Oh, hold on. Hold on.
In order to show your mouse, you have. Oh, there we go. Yes.
There we go.
Yeah, we can see it.
You see this?
Mm-hmm.
You see on the left side.
Is this DNA?
It's the Dolby DNA, yeah. No. So what we have here, this blue things here are objects. Yeah. Now, in Auro-3D, the advantage we have is those objects. They have as well 3-dimensional reflections. Yeah, and we can record and reproduce these 3D reflections in the channel-based environment. So there's always like a time relation between them. And whatever, let's say, the speaker layouts created in Auro-3D are in such a way that this time relation is always respected. So that's the way that our artistic intent is much higher, because the way it is being recorded and the way it is being produced is much closer to each other, yeah, compared to with object-based technology, where the renderer is deciding where to place a kind of an object into a speaker. And as you know, in a cinema theater, yeah, Dolby Atmos has in total 118 objects, yeah, that they can decide simultaneously to bring somewhere in the 20, 30, 50, 60 channel speaker layout of a cinema theater. Yeah, and then that let's say requires a lot of bandwidth. You know, each object is just like an PCM monotrack, yeah, and with some metadata, and the renderer is going to use that metadata to see where it is being positioned. Yeah. Yeah. So you can imagine 118 times, that's 118 PCM channels. That's a lot of bandwidth. You see, normally we are talking here about 7.1. So we jump from 7.1 suddenly to 128 PCM channels. The bandwidth is huge. Yeah. But in a professional cinema system, you have that bandwidth. It's there, yeah? Right. But the point is, when you go to home, you have again that problem that in home you have maximum the bandwidth of 8 channels PCM, yeah? So how was Dolby then able to bring all this kind of stuff? So what they did is they decided to come with a cluster system. That means that they're going to let's say, to take an average where a few objects are coming together and take that as the metadata, and that's what you see on the right side. Yeah, you see they're like clusters. Yeah, and in total they have, in fact, in theory, I believe they can make 16 clusters, and including, of course, the channels. Yeah, a channel is one of the corners as well. Yeah, so and then the objects are divided in those clusters, and those clusters they move to the places, yeah, where the closest is. And it means that if a cluster is moving, yeah, sometimes it moves from one cluster into another one, which can be a very hard jump. And that's the reason why the sound is sometimes not traveling smooth anymore. It jumps from one to another one. And I heard already a few examples on that, yeah, where what you hear in the cinema theater, like a nice smooth movement, yeah, with lots of speakers around it, when it comes into a home system with, let's say, with like, let's say, even with the amount of channel speakers is not, it can be important. It differs as well how the speaker layouts are. Then it differs as well in this jumping thing. But even if there are like 6 speakers on the ceiling, you still feel this kind of average jumping. You don't hear it with every object, of course, but these are artifacts that our technology is not suffering from, because we have this in this channel-based thing, whereas an engineer, you decide which kind of panning law you use, and that will be exactly the same panning law that you have in the reproduction, yeah, which is much less predictable in the, let's say, in our competitors' format.
Yeah. Didn't you have a friend, Aaron? Hopefully he can be on sometime.
Yeah.
But he wasn't a big fan of what, Atmos or all of
Yeah.
all of them?
I think he just prefers General 5.1. So he's a re-recording engineer with a few Oscars under his belt.
Wow.
And he and I were talking about that, and he was saying that his basically his, I guess, input on Atmos is that it's kind of a money grab. So thought that was kind of interesting to hear that from him. And he just thinks that regular old 5.1 as opposed to Atmos is but I didn't ask him about Auro or Auro-3D or anything. I don't even know what he's done with that.
No, but I think that's a good point you're bringing up. But the point is, one of the reasons I believe, Aaron, has to do with the fact that in 5.1, let me put it differently, yeah. You know that in most of the Atmos tracks, yeah, in fact, Dolby even made this publicly on a convention, between 85 and 95% of all the sounds are coming from the channels.
The bed layers.
Not from the beds, from the channels, not from the objects, yeah. And what you have as well, that sometimes people complain as well that there's not so much used, yeah, in the high.
That's like the number one thing that we hear.
Yeah, that's and that has different reasons. Yeah, you see, one of those reasons is this technical issues I just explained about. Yeah, which can, one of the reasons that they say, okay, let's bring it in the channels. We don't have all these issues above. Yeah, it can be different things. But I remember that in the beginning that people who working with that technology, they were saying, oh, now, yeah, Dolby was saying, don't think about it anymore. Just put it there, put the metadata, and the rest is you don't have to think about it anymore. But I think it's the other way around. I think you have to think much more in how is this going all to happen in the different configurations on the market, because most of the object-based stuff that let's say, most of the Dolby Atmos systems sold are just like 2 height speakers, yeah. And of course, let's say, I can imagine that's not creating the experience that people are, let's say, that they listen to in the cinema theater, and that you are expecting. Okay, with the 4 speakers, that's already, let's say, they're coming then close to, let's say, the concept that we have, yeah, or even more speakers, yeah, can be added. But the point is as well, yeah, how is the translation from the original content into the consumer format? And I think that our concept, our 3D's concept, is creating an easier way and a much higher predictability to have that same experience as intended by the creators to bring it home, yeah. And we do it with the technology at the same time that is not, let's say, having this kind of artifacts and things like that. It is like PCM, uncompressed, warm sound, yeah. Even in high resolution audio, film typically is only in 48 kilohertz, yeah, because it's originally created like that. But let's say with music, 96 kilohertz already for, let's say, for a long time the standard, yeah. And we are the only immersive sound format who can bring on a Blu-ray disc 96 kilohertz, yeah. Oh, that's a nice compliment. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Nice to see that. Yeah.
Any plans for your plugins to become VST3 soon?
Yeah, good question. We have.
Oh, cool. I thought it was Pro Tools.
We are working on this moment on it. So just, I think it will be pretty soon. In fact, I cannot just exactly the delivery day, but our engineers are working on that.
So our very own Tim Perry, who edits all of our videos. So if you enjoy the videos that are shorter versions of this entire podcast, and also the audio only podcast for those who, maybe you're just commuting and they want to just listen to these, he puts them on there on anchor.fm/daily hi-fi. So that's a quick plug for that. But this is what he said. He said, have a great show. Check it out. And you can tell him that I ordered a new receiver that had Auro just because of him. So he got a new RCam.
This one
wow.
right,
Yeah,
Yeah, but Arkham has Auro-3D.
yeah.
Yeah.
AVR20.
There it is. This is what he got. So yeah, I see the Auro-3D logo right there, and it's got Dirac too. And look right here, boom.
So you're a bad influence. A very bad influence. You know, it's funny. Last week, Wilfried, somebody said, "I'll give you $5 if you guys don't mention Auro." This
It was
podcast."
actually pretty easy. None of us
We
actually.
didn't,
Yeah,
we
we
didn't
tried,
get
we
paid,
tried.
though. That's pretty messed up.
I know what happened. He said, "I'll bet
We
you
got
$5." We didn't mention it at all, just to prove a point. But
Yeah.
normally we do.
Yeah. You
I have
got
I have some more things to share if you like to.
your-
You know,
your
real quick,
team
I'm
sent
very
me
curious about what
music.
you're saying. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chana.
Your team sent me some music. So this is BT Electronic Opus in Auro-3D native. Can you see all that? I don't know, but anyway, this sounded great. Like there, I actually have the original, like from the '90s, his release of this from back in the day, and that sounds insane. I also just got the new Revon 4K Blu-ray players, and somebody wanted me to test SACD, so I have the 5.1 SACD of Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon, and so I Auro upmixed that. Woo! Like it was cool in 5.1, but man, upmixed in Auro, I was just like, oh my god, I need to put on Wizard of Oz and watch this all over again, you know, because it's just nuts. So I loved it, but I got somebody needing to pick up a TV right now, so I actually have to like
See ya.
skedaddle. I might jump into the after show, but
Yeah.
thank you again, Wilfried, and everybody watching. See you guys. I'll see you guys later.
Yeah. I'll see you,
Yeah.
Chana. I guess
Yeah,
one of us will do the outro. Hey,
Yeah.
you were
Good luck.
mentioning though, Wilfried. We'll fill you in. Don't worry. So, you were mentioning about streaming though. You had a little. I want to know about that before we go.
Yeah, I think that's an important topic too. Yeah, let me share again my PowerPoint. Yeah, and let me see if this is. I think this is the one. So what I showed you is this 24. Let's say our system now have this end-to-end system, and you see streaming there on the right side in the middle as well. Yeah, so it was always one of our goals to do that. And you see, this is the ecosystem when you're talking about everything what you have to cover. Let's say on the left side, you see there all the kind of content, movies, theatrical, and the domestic ones, music, broadcast, events, sport events. Yeah, then it has to go to a pipeline to all the distribution formats. Yeah, and how they're over the top and streaming, and how it comes to the reproduction format. So all this kind of stuff has to be taken account. Yeah, which is in fact concepted from the start when I developed this format in 2006. Yeah. And that's the reason why we could go easy to all these market segments. Yeah, digital cinema first, of course. Yeah, you have to start the format in cinema. We came as first to home, as well in automotive, mobile, gaming. So that's all happening at this moment. Yeah, so that was creating a serious revolution in the sound industry. Yeah, and let's say I think we were very fast followed by Dolby and DTS, and in fact we are the only three end-to-end players who are active on all those markets. Yeah, if you see, let's say the top 5 competitors. Yeah, so we have Auro, Dolby, and DTS, each of them with a different approach. Yeah, and you know as well, Fraunhofer is there with their system, but they do not have digital cinema. Yeah, they are active in all other markets as well. IMAX is in fact only digital cinema and home. Yeah, and Sony 360, which is in fact mainly only in headphone format at this moment. Yeah, so. So this is, let's say, the way I believe that we revolutionize the audio industry. Yeah, this is a little bit innovation stacked. So I developed 3D microphones, mixing consoles to make it all happen. Yeah, due to that, it was easy for Dolby to build further on, let's say, the mixing consoles which were already provided, let's say, to do 3D audio. Yeah, as well on Pro Tools on existing workstations. Even as I showed you behind me, the API Vision has Auro 9.1. A mastering system that we have the mastering concept, the distribution formats, the Auro Codec, I explained that. The playback things, yeah, we have even the watermarking issues. So, you know, in cinema they use watermarking. Even that was being solved with our technology too, yeah. And yeah, so let's say I think this was, let's say, the whole chicken and egg thing was then solved by, let's say, by having our automatic thing, that there was absolutely no lack of content. Yeah. And you see here the big steps in 2011, now 10 years ago. Hey, by the way, this week I installed the first ever in Chengdu. I have to show you a picture. Yeah. In Chengdu, I have the first ever system installed, and that was in August 2011. So now 10 years ago, that was the first ever install from Barco, and that was in Chengdu in China.
Wow.
And then a few years later, in 2014, we came with the first ever AV receiver to home. Yeah. We have then, what I forgot to mention is the first ever movie from George Lucas, Red Tails, in Auro-3D. And then in 2016, automotive, the first cars from Porsche. And now we have Geely. We have more than 1 million cars in the meantime. Yeah, the first games in Auro-3D and things like that. And I think we have now an amazing new thing that we did last year. The tests are running. We do a proof of concept now, let's say, already very soon now. Yeah, because Japan is going to roll out and use this technology that you just have seen. They use it for streaming over standard internet IP.
Interesting.
So what you see here, this is only one microphone rig, yeah, and this was a concept that they did in last year in October, yeah, a concept from a piano and percussion. Now, piano is always a very delicate instrument when it comes up to, let's say, to codecs, yeah. If I hear over, let's say, over digital broadcast a piano, it sounds horrible, yeah. It's all full of nasty artifacts. Same with percussion. So these are the most difficult instruments, let's say, to reproduce the dynamic range, everything involved, yeah. And this is the recording rig, yeah. There are like many microphones in it, but this was the only thing that we used. There were no, let's say, you see a lot of, let's say, supporting microphones, but finally they were not used. In fact, they only used Auro 9.1. They used only 9 channels, yeah. This was the recording thing, let's say, where they did the recording itself. You see the speaker layout, very easy setup there with Auro. No overhead channels, which is, let's say, a nightmare to install, yeah. Just like Auro 9.1 and the encoding equipment, yeah. And that's what happened. So we did streaming live from that concert, yeah, to as well in the auditorium in Galaxy Studios, yeah, over standard IP. So there was not a special broadcast connection or something, it's just standard internet connection, yeah. We did it. They did it as well in Japan to about 100 households, yeah, to let's say to see that everything works fine. The 5.1, because people who didn't have Auro, they could listen to the 5.1. They checked it in Auro 9.1, and at the same time as well to our soundbar. Yeah, we have an amazing soundbar. The feedback we get from the market is that this is the best soundbar ever produced. Yeah,
is that out already?
Who
that
makes
soundbar?
that? Yeah, who makes that?
It is. Let's say we have it ready. Yeah, but we are working with
Dolby.
I want to be one of the first,
yeah.
Wilfried, to review that thing. Because people are already asking me, hey,
What brand's hooking it up?
I cannot tell you now.
Come on, Wilfried.
I want to be one of the first,
nuggets.
Wilfried.
Vizio.
You heard?
No nuggets.
You heard? I'm asking right now.
I think it's
Vizio.
Samsung. It's Samsung.
No, it's got to be like a European name. No, it's got to be a European brand.
We're on
LG.
guessing.
Sorry, I cannot disclose it. I'm on NDA.
Is it Bose?
Hold on. Look at how square. Look at how squarish it is. It's not going to be Sony.
Hold
They're
on.
trying to-
I think it's Bose. Hey, what
Yeah.
people don't know,
We're
we're
gonna
gonna
switch.
start making it up.
Yeah, we're gonna.
We'll
It's
start
all right.
making it
We
up.
can-
This is how
we can
rumors
guess.
get started.
But I want to be one of the first, Wilfried. You heard? You heard? I'm putting you on the spot. And then after you send that, send me the Porsche with the Auro.
Exactly.
No, you don't need that. I'm a car audio guy. I need that.
Now we have the prototypes from this device here in the studios, and it is really mind-blowing because every time when they start to do the demo, even myself, I think, oh, are the speakers, because we have as well the speakers installed, so we can compare easy what the result is with the speakers and without, or let's say, and with the soundbar only. And every time when they start the demo, I think that, oh, the speakers now, I don't know, no, they are off, yeah. But because in the meantime, I know what to listen to, but it is amazing, let's say, how immersive it sounds. It's really, the virtualization in that soundbar is the best ever. Yeah.
So Wilfried, like rough
Yes.
time frame, what are you trying to shoot for to
No.
to send that out to market? Is that like sometime next year maybe, or
Yeah, next year.
Okay.
Yeah. And in the very let's say the price range.
B&O.
Yeah, we are going to go at, let's say, in the neighborhood like 400 euros, $500 or something. That's
I like
$500
yeah.
US dollars.
so it's not Bowers and Wilkins because
Yeah, so
around
it's-
five. You know,
Sounds like
I don't-
Yamaha.
It is an
Yeah, I
amazing.
don't think that's. yeah, I think it's a good guess, Michael.
I'm a guess, man.
I'm
think
back
that's
to
a good
Vizio.
guess.
Good.
Yeah,
You're gonna. I'm gonna go with
Samsung.
I think your
Samsung.
Yamaha one is good.
Samsung, Yamaha.
I think
Or-
Dolby
I'm
is
looking
going
at-
to make it.
I'm watching
Or-
Wilfried's facial expressions when I say these names to see if he like.
No, you,
Hey,
you got to
doesn't-
randomize it, but then bring it back in and see if you
Yeah.
can figure out the pattern. We're going to use our AI to figure out the pattern.
How about doesn't Denon have a soundboard now, Michael?
They
I
have
think so.
very good soundbars. By
Oh,
the way.
you see that? He saw he got
Oh,
he perked up
very
a little
good
bit right there. He's
soundbar.
like, got.
He got
And I-
excited.
And I tell you,
all right.
we have as well technology that can improve existing soundbars. We call it Auro-Space, yeah, and it creates just from an existing soundbar, just like a stereo soundbar. And if you put our technology in it, it's amazing how, let's say, more three-dimensional sound it comes from it, and it really improves clarity and everything that you're used to hear from Auro. It does that with an existing soundbar.
There you go.
Like a few manufacturers, let's say, testing.
I don't
out-
believe you. You'll have to prove
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I don't doubt Wilfried anymore.
We can do the demo. We can do the demo
I-
for you with pleasure. Yeah, yeah. And it
Put the
is-
sound bar in front of your computer and do a demo for us real time.
yeah.
I'll send you
Just make
binaural
sure
mic.
the logo. Make sure the logos.
That's a
Yeah.
good
Facing towards
idea.
the
Make sure you
camera.
I'm not
turn it
sure.
around so we can see the model number on the back.
Okay. I didn't
Engineering
know how to
sample.
do it, let's say via Zoom or something like that.
Maybe for our VIP. You know what I mean? Maybe you can give us a quick demo, tape everything off. I'm very curious to see how it sounds. So anyway, what else? What else?
No, so I was just
What
telling
else?
you guys this concept.
Yeah, look at this.
So this concept. So what happened is, let's say what we did is, so on the left side it was in Japan, a live happening, yeah, and that came then streamed over standard IP to all those places, yeah. And they had, and very interesting, this is the Japanese way of working. They wanted to compare the real life sound in the hall with a system they set up in the foyer so that they could hear the streamed result, how people could hear it at home, compared to, let's say, how it was sounding in the hall. Yeah? And I tell you what, most of the people there, they said, give me the streamed result, because you really feel like you're in the hall and you have so much more detail because the microphones are on the exact sweet spot where nobody can sit, yeah, and they're picking up so much more interesting thing that is, let's say, that is disappearing in the acoustics of the hall, yeah. And Raija Asakura is one of the most renowned journalist, audio-video journalist in the industry world. He is from Japan, yeah, he's very known, yeah. And he wrote the following on yahoo.com in Japan. He said, this experiment is groundbreaking in that it delivers a place and brings the concert hall itself into home, yeah. And see the quote he wrote. He said, I think it's a revolution in the way that Edison's Mary's Sheep was recorded on a gramophone, yeah. So for him, it was like a groundbreaking new event, yeah. And so that's I think which is our future, yeah. And we are going to do the next test, I think, over 2 months, yeah. And then we are almost there because that's, let's say, we are going to roll it out by the end of this year with Wow, that's the broadcaster, together with the NTT, yeah. And they are working on the integration of this technology. But then in Japan, people can hear sport events, they can have all this kind of programs exactly in the quality that you are used now to hear only from a Blu-ray disc in Auro-3D. With the same audio quality. There is no compromise in audio quality. It's exactly the same codec. So we have about like 1 million devices now in the market with our decoder inside, yeah. So those people, those million households, they can have, let's say, that experience from every kind of content produced, let's say, by this broadcaster OTT-wise, yeah. That's just the start.
Just the
Wow.
start.
Yeah.
Don't tell me you're gonna do like Auro on mobile phones now. You're gonna be like
Yeah, well-
Auro, like
Direct.
oh, I'm
He's
like
like he has
getting-
that on his phone.
Yeah, we have that already. Yeah, we have about 2 million. We have about 2 million smartphones already on the market. Yeah, in fact, we were too soon. We did that in 2016 with Tino Mobile, a Chinese brand, which was finally bought by another company and didn't follow up anymore. Because the reason why they said is okay, we want to have as well native. We want to have both and native and stream, so that we have native music upmixed, that it is like one total product. Yeah. So the moment when we are ready now with the streaming codec, I think that rolls out immediately and more automatically. Yeah. So that's something we can do as well as a
Yeah.
third session. Then, Joe,
Yeah, I feel it should have a different name though. You know, like when everything has the same name, it kind of dilutes it. You know, so like even though it's Auro, but it should be like Auro Mobile. You know what I mean? Like I don't want people to think that it's the same as your system over there from their phone.
Yeah.
You don't need a system. You just have all you need is your phone.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's I think that you are right. And the phone, let's say binaurally, even we have, let's say, because we are known for our binaural technologies, is being perceived as the best on the market. Yeah. It is selected as well in the new China standard, in the new China broadcast standard, our binaural technology. Yeah. But it is, let's say, that might be an interesting third session that we can have, because then we can show real time over now, because that's a demo I can do. The soundboard demos
Sure.
I can do here, but then people can have it on their headphones, and I can do the on-off with Automatic for headphone on and off and how it all sounds. Yeah.
Okay.
But of course, let's say the binaural technology is, let's say, it is not the same as over speakers. We still, as human
Yeah.
beings, those speakers, the air moving around us, it's a different way of, let's say, of experiencing sound compared to a headphone. Although if you don't have another solution, if you don't have another choice, of course, then better headphone than just, let's say, nothing. Yeah. Or let's say just stereo over headphone. Yeah. So it improves, let's say, the out of head experience we have with our system is very nice. And the same thing, automatic over headphone, is again with respect to the artistic intent, or let's say the artistic integrity from the creators, and that's something we can do perhaps in one of the next shows. Yeah?
Sounds good. And we do have our after show, so if you can stick around, I know it's late over there, so if you can't stick around too long, but I'm sure maybe some of our patrons have a few questions for you, Wilfried. It's always a pleasure having you on here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hope it was something extra we could learn, and I'm happy to what is that? Hans Zimmer prayer concert native Auro-3D for can you generate the Hans Zimmer prayer? I think if you just play back the 5.1 or 7.1 from the Blu-ray disc and you upmixing it with Auro, you have a fantastic result already. But then you need, of course, an AV receiver with Auro-3D inside, and then you see you have it now at home, Joe, right?
Yeah, I have the binaural.
I have Auro-3D as well.
You have the Auro-3D at home too.
Oh, I have the
And I just need more content for it. So.
Well, he just explained that you can just upmix the other stuff.
True.
Yeah, you can just get a Porsche Panamera. Good to go.
That's it.
Hey, Michael? Did you already try vinyl into your AV receiver? Do you have still a vinyl? How do you say vinyl or vinyl?
Vinyl, yeah, I don't have a vinyl.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
We say it wrong here.
Yeah.
I see.
I like you say, it sounds better than when you say it. Vinyl,
Yeah.
It sounds
You know-
cooler.
way cooler.
One more question, last question that I'll leave with, because I've had a lot of people ask this, which is just what happens if you play like your native Auro demos, like the tractor demo, but then they have the, like an Atmos layout with ceiling speakers and not 30-degree high channels.
blows
What
up.
happens? Isn't that not going to work properly?
No, the tractor rolls over you instead of near you.
It's not your.
So then I
because-
feel like I'm squished. I'm like,
It feels like a tractor is coming over you, and not where it
Yeah.
should be. The
Okay.
point is when sounds which are meant to be on that position, when you put them suddenly overhead, then same with music. If music is mixed like that, there's a lot of information in these high channels, a lot of, let's say, even direct information. The moment when you put them overhead, like you feel like the orchestra is above you, it gives a very unnatural, and instead of an open feeling about freedom, it gives that kind of compressed feeling. It does not sound nice. Yeah. So the other way around works. Yeah. You see, there was like even this week a fantastic article. Yeah. I should share it with you. An article which was about the difference between the speaker layouts and things like that. And that was a guy who's installing systems. Yeah. And since that moment, he said, "Okay, install Auro-3D. It plays back everything very well." Yeah.
Yeah. So
would you,
all
would you
guys
say
with
that
ceiling-
that's a flaw in Auro-3D because it doesn't like account for overhead and ceiling speakers.
So,
No
A lot of people
flaws.
use those. A lot
No
of people use
flaws.
those.
Yeah, he's like,
A lot of people
just
use those.
take your ceiling speakers and then put them all in series, and then that's just the one huge Voice of God channel.
Michael
That's
just
how you
made the
do
hit
it.
list.
That's what you do.
I'm
All of
asking
them are just your Voice of
questions.
God.
I'm asking
Boom.
questions because I have 4 in ceiling speakers, but there's no physical way for me to do a 30-degree height speaker up front, and rear I could probably get away with, but front I can't.
So
So I have a
what do you do?
I have a cabinet there
Michael, why not?
because I have a cabinet up front. It'd be, let's see. I'll see if I can share
Yes,
a
show 'em.
picture. I'm gonna show them.
Yeah.
We got time.
Yeah, put 4 phones up there.
All right, so this would be. Let me give
Let's
you
see.
a picture. Okay, this is probably about the best I can. I think I showed him this, didn't I?
Yeah, let's see. We've been trying to tell him this whole time.
Screen. Yeah, they're trying to convince me. Wilfried.
Oh,
They're
what
hit.
the-
I mean, they're hitting me hard. Like, man, you got to do
Well,
this.
because
Michael.
Yeah, dude. Seriously, you're missing out.
There.
I see. I have a suggestion.
Oh,
I have a suggestion. Yeah.
your
So the screen channels, are they like in the middle of the screen or more to the let's say below the center of the screen?
So behind my screen, I'll
Can you
show
show
you
the
that.
open?
Because I have found amazing results. Yeah. Let's see, because if you use it for home cinema, you do not need those 30 degrees. Yeah. Typically, let's see, more important is the fact that you have this that around the screen you have on the screen this vertical plane, because it creates already a lot of transparency. If you have those channels up there, yeah. Oh, I see. Okay.
How much is left above those speakers? How many?
You're probably talking 2 feet, maybe not even 2 feet. Well, think about this. There's 18 inches in the subwoofer, so probably 18 inches.
Yeah. Then I have another question. Do you have an ability in your ceiling just before the screen to put in your ceiling speakers there?
So I have, yes. So technically, yeah, I have. I mean, it depends on if there's a like a, not a rafter, but you know what I mean, like your
Yeah.
whatever
because
you want to call
you
those.
you can bring them as well. Let's say to the ceiling. Yeah.
Mhm.
But
So mine, I have
but
2.
then
I have
as close as possible to, let's say, to the screen. Yeah. But in the
Right.
ceiling. But in the
yeah.
ceiling.
So mine are in the ceiling.
Yeah.
But they're away from that cabinet a little bit because again, I was doing Dolby spec.
Yeah, but the Dolby spec brings the speaker really way much into the room. What I try to have is,
Yeah.
let's say, to have this 2
Way
planes
up
on, let's say, on the screen, because that creates that depth and, let's say, that transparency on the screen as a screen sound. Yeah.
Right.
Not, let's say, coming with sounds which are meant to be like flying overhead. This is about, let's say, what happens on the screen. That's the
Right.
reason why the height layer should be as close as possible to the screen. Yeah. And in fact, if you are, of course, in stadium in a cinema theater, or like say typically where you are sitting not in the center of the room, yeah, then of course it is not, you can never have this 30 degrees. Then you bring it to even 15 degrees, but that doesn't matter so much, because we have then typically in theater we have this overhead layer, and then this 30-degree is, let's say, not so much an issue when you combine it around the screen. You have, of course, this 34, 35-degree or 40-degree even, let's say, up there, yeah. And then you have the very important is that you can try to keep that as one plane, and yeah, it's easy to install.
Do you have any pictures, Michael, with that's like a little bit more lit up, like without the
Of
blue
what?
light?
The
Oh,
cabinet?
inside behind the screen. Because
Sure.
I've seen some other ones that you've shown where
Yeah, it'd
shows
be
how much
older
space.
photos. But yeah. Well, I mean, there's this one.
Let's see. Okay.
Oh wow, okay,
So
that's
there.
okay. Yeah, but that feels like you really have place up there, because you have to see the center. I see that your center of the screen is around the middle of the center is about the middle of your screen, which is fantastic.
Mhm.
I like that the center is even slightly below the center. Yeah, let's say the axis of the speaker is slightly even below, because most of the dialogue, yeah,
Right.
is center or just below center. Yeah, and most of the source sounds as well. They're like, so let's say having it on like if you combine it in 8, yeah, on 3/5, yeah, is for me my personal preference. Although the standard says a little bit more, let's say the middle itself, yeah, or
Right.
just above. But I prefer, let's say, if you see
Just a
where
little bit lower.
if you want to see where the standard comes from, this standard, let's say, having it just above in the middle of the screen, comes from I think even the 60s, when they have like this 3/4 format, yeah, which is
Okay.
completely something different. And at that time, a lot of times people were shoot like from top to bottom, yeah. The whole close-up thing and things now, the way that movies are recorded now, you see if you would count the average where dialogue is involved, you will see you're coming most of the time of the whole movie. It's just, let's say, most of the source sounds are center or just below center, yeah.
Gotcha.
And then you have always place to put above there, because even if you would put it behind your screen, you will have a fantastic result. Of course,
So even if it's just barely above the speakers.
Is that enough distance between that tweeter and the other tweeter on the other speaker that hit place above there?
The point is, it creates that extra transparency. Yeah. So if you divide, you can imagine all these hundreds of sounds coming just from this channels, or compared to the moment, then you can have like 3 extra channels on top of that. Yeah. It gives already immediate transparency. Of course, what you don't have is, let's say, the amazing result of having this, let's say, this height extra, yeah. But it creates transparency a lot, and you have it, of course. Let's say if you create that layer and that goes through, and you have it behind it, it really creates the difference. Absolutely, yeah. Of course, when there is, let's say, a little bit more height, yeah,
Right.
then you
I wouldn't notice
feel
it
the
as much.
difference a little bit more better, but you will be astonished at what you can create already. If you can just do it as a test, Michael, try it out. It's really worth to do it. I would even doubting, let's say, to bring it into the ceiling. I tell you, if you can do it in the ceiling, then you have both. Then you have and transparency, and of course you have suddenly that much more, let's say, spatial effect, and you have then the height as well from the front a little bit higher. So it will be a little bit more impressive when you can put it there, but you will have already a good result when you can put it, let's say, behind the screen as well.
Okay.
You have extra speakers. I'm sure you can just do a little quick test.
Yeah, man, I got them all over the place.
Well, cool. We're on an hour 36. It's crazy.
Well,
so
this has been fun.
Always good having you, Wilfried. I'm sure we'll have you again soon. We'll schedule something.
We schedule something for the next 2 topics then.
There you go.
The automatic valve and then the binaural technology as well. A good idea. Good?
Sounds good. Well, we don't have time to do the outro, but we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Speak to you soon.
Thank you, Wilfried.
Bye.
Bye.